Peace, peace, peace. Feel like I got this position good. Whew. Greetings to all. Man, this is gonna be a great one. So get your popcorn ready. Um, wow. This is, I don't know, I might need to reposition myself. You might want to get yourself ready too, but let's first give honor to Source, Most High, the creator for everything. This is going to be a very eye opener, definitely, to the depths of emotional depths. Let's just say that. What else? It's not as it's much easier as it has been in the past. But I'll just say this: this topic at hand has a lot to do with finally opening the door to my own skeletons, my own, and let's just start by saying that we all are human. We all or are part of this human experience. We all are going through something or experiencing something to where something has redefined or shaped us into who we are today. And me, again, addressing these skeletons in my closet has a lot to do with, again, a lot of things that I face, and then just being able to speak about it now. So that being said, I'll make sure my mic. I had to charge my mic up because I did a podcast that I share in my community center that I've gradually been coming into with my Spotify. And I've been talking about this topic, addressing the skeletons in my own closet and finally opening that door to those things and just basically letting the skeletons fall out and be like, oh gosh, they all have some type of name or tag or something that I did in my own past that has reflected to where I've gotten. I'm not at all going to make it seem like I got it all together, that I haven't done some things that I'm not happy with, but I'm in the redefining process of who I am. So this topic, I'll elaborate more on, has a lot to do with addressing certain skeletons. It definitely won't be the last part. There's probably going to be so many. I could see like a part 10 and so forth. But most importantly, the one that is very, it's going to be very interesting is how I even got into being intimate and what led me be intimate with men, or how did I even get down that road of that door being open. And so addressing these things is also pointing out my own role in being hurt and hurting other people. So there was a point in time where I used to feel very shameful or guilt. I had a lot of guilt around why I did what I did. So just as a man, and how I realized just the human experience, or just realizing like, okay, I go through things, but also having to navigate my emotions through it all, the mental health awareness and so forth. I need to make peace with these things before anybody. So that being said, what a lot is not discussed about even how men come to this awareness, I'll speak on my experience, is there, since I was very young, or when I was younger, I didn't really have, when I really reflect on a lot of things, I didn't really have a lot of relationships or healthy relationships with women. I've spoken about this on my YouTube. So that process of that led me into how I became in an intimate setting with men. How you say, let me fix this because I feel like it's gonna bother me until I get it right. I feel like, I'll just hold it. So, how I even got to that place again is what's really probably not discussed, but I'll speak from my experience. Is that I'll go back to a memory where I was, for one, I want to make it very clear to let people know that watch me, because there's an individual me that you don't see outside of YouTube and so forth, whatever platform. And that individual me still goes through a lot of ish. I still go through my own emotions. I still go through um, having been in that place of the abuser who inflicted pain, the one who tried to escape through relationships with women, womanizing, what else? Gaslighting, even being in that position of the narcissist. And learning to take full accountability of this is to become aware that I'm responsible for my own actions. There was a point again in my life where I wanted to blame my mother, blame my dad for him not being there, or just blame my mother just for her not giving me that nurturing and emotional support and so forth. But there's a part of my life where, again, my own actions played to where I am today. So taking full accountability and responsibility of that, I first am responsible for my emotions, my own actions and so forth. So that took a lot to where I am today, to where I realized that through my learning and trying to unlearn these behavior patterns of being emotionally neglected or abandoned physically and so forth, is that I also did that shit. I also did that in relationships. Again, like I said, acknowledging the fact that I became a womanizer because I seen people being used. I seen people being used, and I thought that that was normal to treat other people as such. And I thought that this was something I should normalize. And in that process, I realized how many people got hurt, and I wanted to ignore my pain and project it onto everyone else. But I was that abused at one point in time. Um, I realized now, reflecting through those different phases and stages in my life, from my experience, I realized I'll go back to like early childhood, how I even in my early, I would say like my early 20s, to where I got my first experience with a man, to how I even got to that place within my life, had a lot to do with the lack of trust I did not have with women. And that lack of trust began with just certain memories that carried on, certain repressed emotions that carried on from my childhood experience, having seen foundations that wasn't built upon trust and authenticity. Because I took this character, or I saw characters in my story, in my life, in my experience, that did not really support and really honor people or respect them. So what did I do? I took that and I relived it. I created that same pattern. And through that process, a lot of people were hurt. Not only myself, I hurt a lot of people. Sometimes unintentionally and sometimes intentionally, because purposely I didn't realize like um how much I think somebody's gonna come to the park. I'm gonna probably reposition myself here soon. But I realized how much I wanted to avoid or ignore what I put others through. So that being said, how that begun again, those relationships that I seen very young, that did not reflect integrity, that did not reflect, having self-respect, a lot of value within themselves. So somebody coming to the park, I'm probably gonna, and the train's coming. So yeah. How y'all doing? I'm great. You're fine. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna reposition myself out of respect for someone else. I don't want to get them on camera. So yeah. I'm gonna go over here. So that being said, based off my own experiences, I realize how much um from my own experiences, like very young, seeing how I saw people just purposely use other people. They didn't really value them. They didn't really see them as an asset or see themselves as an asset. So I don't ever want to get on here or in any way make it seem like paint this perfect picture like oh, I've been living this, perfect life for so long, and in reality, no, not at all. It took a lot to get to where I am. It took a whole lot to get to where I am, and in reality, that's just the authenticity of it all. Oh, it's fine because I got a mic out here, everything with y'all. Yeah, it's cool. Appreciate it. Yeah. So again, telling you, man, it's a beautiful day. I knew I had to get out here and do this. Y'all just bear with me, man. Y'all just bear with me. Appreciate that, brother. You just like you didn't have to move, but yeah, I knew the baby would have been laughing and all that. Great Lord, telling you, man, when you doing something, it's not going to always. Okay, that's a little better. So my mic's still on. So yeah, just again based off experience and so forth, um, the skeletons I'm really unpacking has a lot to do with again how I became intimate with men, and just going back from the root of seeing why it had a lot to do with I could not trust the opposing sex or opposite sex, or just seeing so much painfully with women that there was no type of trust in any way to there was a fear there of trying to really build something with a woman. I tried a lot, but there was just a lot of scarcity and fear around it possibly looking like what my mother went through with men. Again, even though she was a woman, and the men that she had around, it was still that fear of the in and out thing. The scarcity around like, is this person really going to love me? And then if it didn't look like what my mother went through, then how could I really say? See, that's the dysfunctionality. If it didn't look like what my mother went through, because that's the only love that I knew. That's the only love that I received. So that pattern I repeated, as I got to my teenage years, I would gradually try to, date, experiment. I was exposed to sex so young to where, um, going back this is going to lead up to how I again was intimate with men. When my with my first experience with women, it wasn't built upon authenticity or trust or nurturing, because not having that experience with my mother created this dialogue or this narrative like there won't ever be. And that's what again the programming that I received. And so I took that as a narrative like this is how love should be with every woman. This is my experience. And in that, you're talking about a wounded love, a wounded narrative. So me being forced and kissed on young by this woman that my mom would hang out with, and one of her friends that, again, they both abused drugs. And during that whole process, it's like sometimes when she would come around, she would forcefully try to, give me a hug and like forcefully as a little boy, like kiss on me and stuff. And it was very unwanted. I didn't, you know, it was the opposite of what my mom was giving away, but it was still unwanted. I felt disgusted. I don't know where you've been, and plus it just didn't feel right as a child. It didn't feel like it's something I really needed. And in reality, it's something I really wanted from my mom, that nurturing and stuff. But this lady would do it in a way to where it was just so forceful. She would kiss me on my mouth. She would do a lot of stuff, rub me inappropriately. So that right there built a relationship centered around, again, not being able, I didn't know how this was going to affect me throughout my teens, throughout my 20s, now to my early 30s. I didn't realize how much that was going to affect my relationships, and how much, again, it would lead me into that foundation young, not trusting women, not wanting to trust women, because I felt my mother should have protected me from things as such. So that right there led me into not only seeing and hearing rumors about her on the street, about what she has done. And, you know, naturally, as a young boy, a little boy, you're going to want to protect your caregiver or parent from whatever it is people trying to say, negatively, or just, try to ruin their reputation. Young, I used to hear rumors about my mom because she went to prison, and you know, that right there, having to see her behind the prison, glass door, that right there affected me because it's like, well, why can't you be here with me? I'm needing you more than ever. So that foundation, when we're talking about women or nurturing or wanting to feel that love from your mother, her actions like affected a lot of my upbringing and accepting that now to realizing where I did not receive that love. So that's how I would show up in relationships. I knew I wasn't showing up 100%. I knew as I gradually grew, I wasn't going to show up there because there was a fear. And I knew sometimes purposely, I knew that I was using, because that's all I knew. I knew I was using women. I knew I was womanizing, which I didn't know the terminology then. But in reality, I knew exactly what I was doing because that's all I knew. And I thought that this was a part of my character and so forth. And with that being said, how I got into the setting with men is, again, there's been so much dishonesty, discomfort with women, the opposite sex, to where I didn't think I could get any type of nurturing, or I didn't even think it was possible. So there will be, again, scarcity around trying to trust them again. There was a lot of betrayal. I remember when I want to say like my early, like I was seeing someone, and in my early 20s, and they didn't know. And this is how like a lot of women, when you hear this thing like down low men and they having secret relationship with men, I'm gonna drop a gem on that you probably knew, but it's more like clarity. Most likely, and even from my experience, the reason why I even got in an intimate setting with a man has a lot to do with the relationships I had with women. When I really reflect and really can say, well, how could I be in something sustainable with a woman if there's no trust there, if there's no honesty? And it's not to classify all women as like this, but this is the mindset most of the men, that when we grow up in certain neighborhoods where we see or have seen our mothers treat men just, horribly, cruel, and then there's no accountability. We never seen a wholesome or holistic exchange. We never seen a healthy exchange with a woman and man. There was always, you hear as a little boy, you would, my environment, conflict driven, and then you would hear a man come around and, there wasn't always pleasant things to talk about him, or there was something sexual. So again, this exposure exposed us young. I'm just like a sponge. This is men. We're like a sponge soaking this up. So we don't realize how much this would affect us into where we are now, and how much it has affected me. I was, again, a container. I was a sponge soaking up, receiving everything. And in reality, in my mind, subconsciously, I'm reenacting this. These things are being programmed in the depths, and then consciously I'm repeating it. So, these environments where we're around, not never seeing, very seldomly a small percentage of a man coming around and really treating a woman with respect. A lot of these women didn't have self-respect. So again, we carry this alone. And so that's why I say, just digging these skeletons out of my closet, I want it all, make it seem like I had it all together. No, I became that very monster and reenacted some of those behaviors that I saw people do, because I really thought it was normal. And then realizing how much it could have damaged their life, and probably did, for, I don't know. They could be still healing from it. And so me getting into the relationship with men, that played a major part in me not having that trust. Or when you see young little boys get into gangs or get into these groups or whatever, they want to feel seen. We want to feel seen. And the only people that we can connect with and feel seen from is people that either can relate to our trauma or pain, or like they don't know who to trust besides these people in the gangs, or people in these environments that really they feel a sense of worthiness, or they feel a sense of acceptance. And in reality, they thinking this is normal, but it's just leading them down a road of self-destruction. And that's what I realized. And so, that being said, how I got into my first experience with a man is that I remember specifically just in the home where my mom, it was around, I guess you could say, tax season. And I had got this money, and I went out, did some things for myself. And I remember specifically the amount of money, a few $100s that I had. And what I did was, I remember my door didn't have a handle on it at the time. So I remember putting a towel over my door. If you grew up in the trench, you put the towel to be able to shut it tight. So I put the towel on my door, shut it, to where I knew that that's the only reason I knew it could shut. And you're not in your mind thinking that someone's gonna steal or want to take something from you, because this is something you earned. This is something you did. So I remember specifically of having, I believe it was between $300 to $400, and I remember putting it in my drawer. And I know before people say something or go in the comment, let me tell you something. You shouldn't ever have to question or worry about someone stealing from you that is family and so forth. Yeah, I know some people like them, the ones you got to watch the most. But what I'm getting at is this, is that I should not have to be concerned about that in my own home, in my own environment, where I'm supposed to feel safe as a man, as a little boy, whatever it is age I am. So that being said, again, these environments pretty much prepared and created a relationship where who could I trust in? I had to protect myself. So this is where a lot of young boys, young men, and who we are now, who can we really trust? When there's been so many betrayals, when there's been so many backstabbings or certain things to where it has led us to this behavior, to where you want to ask us how we're doing and so forth, in a society where we're not taught to express ourselves, or if we do, we've been around so many wounded people to where when we're trying to speak up, it's automatically ostracized, or it's automatically put down and shunned. So I remember specifically coming back from somewhere shopping or something, and there was an amount. I believe I had more than that amount, but I remember specifically the girl I was dating. We came back from the beach or something. Oh no! Before we left, we came back, and I remember a certain amount being missing. I believe it was like out of I think I saved at least, let's say 700 or something. It was around that amount, to where when I returned, a certain amount was missing, like $300 or $400, and I'm like, hold on. And so it was just awkward in there, and I was just like, yo, hold on, pause. How? Why? So many things run through your mind, and here you is asking your mom, and you want to be just like, no one could do this. And I was just so angry. I was so hurt by it. And I remember my younger sister being in there, and she said she didn't know and so forth. So basically, I didn't know who did it. I didn't really care, but I repressed a lot of emotions through that. And now I'm speaking about it. And there was another incident to where even, me working at this place before, and I remember having something on my card, and I remember driving my mom's car one day, and I know it's specifically what I had on my card, and I remember coming back and checking it, and it was saying how this was gone. And I remember specifically going to, really checking it and seeing like, hold on. And I went to my mom, just like the before. I addressed her then. She said no. But I went to her and addressed it. And I said, you know what? You used my card, and I knew it. And again, it's things that we want to ignore and so forth. But this is an environment where are you going to go after that? Who's going to accept you in? What you going to do? So I repressed a lot through that, to where when I did check the card and they told me this is where someone used it, and I knew it was nobody else but her. I mean, it tells you the location, so forth, yada, yada, yada. They even pull up the fact that they can bring people on camera. But I was like, it's cool. I didn't want to press charges. I could. And I realized so much throughout the years how much I repressed through a lot of things as such. So that right there, a lot of things were was like the straw that broke the camel's back, in a way to where my first experience with a man was in that same environment, that same home, to where I could not at that moment felt like I can trust in any woman because of just the connections, and I was in or putting myself in because of I needed that approval, I needed that attention. Here comes the train. But again, with that being said, my first experience, I knew it was something I didn't want to do or care to do. I was just such in a vulnerable place to where I was so hesitant, like, no, I don't want to do this. And my first experience, because, I ain't gonna really go into detail, but it was what they call fellatio. And in me receiving that, this person offered me, in exchange, like, money. So that being said, it's like I was already in a position what led me there to where I can't get, where am I gonna get money from? Because this person making this excuse, and they're not really open to sharing, or that relationship years ago where I'm at now is what I'm finally closing out. But that relationship with women, or just that whole dialogue, is just some things I just couldn't. I was just so hurt to where I could not put my energy towards it too much. So it was like being in a house with an enemy, or being in a house with someone who you couldn't really trust or confide in anymore. So when I did that, you know, now that I reflect on it, it was so much of me feeling like, well, now that happened, and this person is willing to, you know, give me this just in exchange for that. I really took on that narrative like, oh, this is cool, this is healthy, or this is someone that really supports me, or and so forth. And again, not having any boundaries, not really caring if someone else knew, but there was still a lot of guilt and shame around that. Again, because I didn't have a lot of men in my life that really, really talked about these things. I was just so much of trying to find someone to confide in. I can see this happen with a lot of young boys who have been exposed sexually to something, or being taken advantage of, or in any way not really having a strong foundation with women. So again, this became a process of relationships or things where I was never all in. I was doing it specifically for, well, let me see how much money I can get, or let me, and it sounds like that. It can sound like it, I was giving myself away for what? For who? I didn't know my value then. I didn't know my self-worth. So a lot of where I was vulnerable, it was like the little boy in me, the little boy in me trying to find a sense of safety. And this is what you see with a lot of men, young and so forth. A lot of those gangs, or a lot of stuff that they do, whatever environment they're in, no matter their age, whether they're young or even at my age, it's like they're trying to find a sense of safety, peace, or comfort in whomever it is that can offer that or reciprocate that. So what I start to realize and accept is that I try to hide it a lot. Then I start to grow and realize that now being here, I don't have to ever feel shameful or guilt around it, and neither do you. Um, so that went on for years, to where I was even in a relationship with women, and I was doing my best to try to hide that part of me, because here it is, I'm trying to live this secret life. But it was so much fear around trying to in commitment, because I never saw commitment. I never really saw a holistic relationship. I haven't ever, well, to this moment, like, seen a relationship that was healthy. I've seen it, eventually, but I had to create it for myself, is what I'm saying. And this is how I'm here and being able to talk about it. Is that I didn't see, even when I was younger, I didn't know what, and I use this term not to, really, little boy. I use this term like not to attack anyone. He's just kicking the slide. Hey, can you not do that? Thanks. Sheesh, like, were you trying to break the slide for the other kids? Something always trying to distract you. But again, um, so with that, I realized how much that I was trying to hide from myself and in relationship with women, to where I would be in dynamics where, again, I knew I couldn't trust. I knew I didn't trust women because of so many things. Again, seeing a pattern of being face to face with women who would treat men so cruel or disrespect them. I would be face to face with it so much to where I took on this narrative. I took on this characteristic, this character of like, okay, before I let them hurt me, I'm gonna get what I can and I'm gonna dip out, or I'm gonna do what I can and and not even think that I should care. So a lot of what I repressed, I became numb. I became forgetful. Um, and so in those connections, I realize now, coming full circle, how many people were hurt by my irresponsibility or my not wanting to really take accountability for my own mother issues, for my own, responsibility of, really taking care of myself. So in that dynamic, I realized like I could not and refuse to try to trust women again because of so many things I experienced with them very young. And then now seeing the awareness of even having a child or a princess, it's like um just just even how it was even normalized to where when I was young, I knew nothing about, people who chose the preference of being in same sex. I knew nothing about that until, when I was younger, like we would know of very few people, like, oh, this is such and such, and you still didn't know the idea of what they did and so forth. So again, you there's a curiosity there as a child. When you're young, there's something there to where you're like, um, there's a curiosity there, like, what does that mean? Or what is that to be that? Not knowing like you're surrounded by these people, or not knowing that you'll come into awareness of this. Because it's always been around, but it's just how much it's been accepted by this people, criticized by these people. I was telling someone, it's like, why is it that when you hear why is it that when you hear a woman say, oh, I don't trust men, girl, I'm finna go get me a girlfriend, or but you don't hear, I guess they call it a double standard, you don't hear men say like, oh, I can't trust women no more, let me go get a man. And then people start saying that, it's like immediately he will be attacked. He will be attacked because, oh, he this and he that. But a lot of us from experience were called, and this is not to attack anyone, we were called gay, we was called the F word, we were called so many things too young, because if in any way we show femininity, like what's natural, like any type of feminine traits in a way to not be masculine, or which is an energy, but to be overly feminine, or to express a soft side, or your voice, anything that looked more so towards, as a woman or anything, it will automatically, I heard people talk to their kids like, oh, he this, he that, he get, he out, oh, he are. Even a lot of things to where you begin to take on this narrative and believe this, knowing that's not what you're doing, it's the influence behind it. And then I realized, like, to where I would get into these relationships knowing that I did not, with both men and women, I would get into these dynamics knowing that I did not want to be in it. I needed to be more to myself. I needed to heal. I didn't know what that looked like. So with those relationships and from that experience, I went from hiding it in relationships to where I knew there were some women who knew, to where I was just so ashamed and guilt because a little boy in me was like, even though I was at this age of 20 and in my 20s, it was a phase in my life to where I went through an identity crisis. I realized now that creating a false narrative or creating a false identity around like, really questioning my sexual preference. Because I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying to find a safe place, just as anybody in the world, trying to find a safe and peaceful place. And through that process, I realized in betraying myself, I was hurting other people. I wasn't being honest. I wasn't showing up for myself. I wasn't being honest and saying, yeah, this is my life right now. I don't know where it's going, but I knew now that, again, I didn't have to take those women and certain women down that path of them questioning themselves or why they don't feel enough, because I know that would happen a lot. A lot of women feel like, well, they're just as hurt behind it just as well as the men. But we have learned to repress it so long to where we're thinking like, make sure my mic's still on, like this is okay. We should treat them like that because, here it is. We've numbed it so long. We like, nah, they deserve this. And that's the culture we grew up in. And none of it was okay. I was sitting here thinking like, you know what? I don't ever got to tell them. Let them find out. And knowing that they knew and battling with that spirit, of you can call it a Jezebel, incubus, succubus, just battling with that energy, that spirit at that moment of, really questioning what it is that I like, what it is that I want, what it is that I need, and trying to decipher that. So in reality, I thought I was fooling them, and in reality, I was fooling myself. So through those different stages and phases in my life, a lot of them didn't know, and a lot of them did. But it's like sometimes they were naive. Sometimes they didn't know their worth. And I realized then I knew what I was attracted. I'm like, yo, I realized how many, through the process of hurting myself, how many people I was hurting because I didn't know my worth. I didn't know my value. I thought my value was really in, well, this is why I'm supposed to do to have relationships. I'm supposed to just have sex. And then the being inconsiderate was a lot of the damage, where you're going out there with the opposite sex, whether unprotected or not. And then the irresponsibility of coming home with that woman and laying down. Not only with that betrayal, but to really in my mind to think that that was okay. To really in my mind, and then knowing the possibility that you could get this woman pregnant, or she can have your child, and you're still living this life. And this is what a lot of us were no longer, where I'm ashamed and guilty of, is that not being honest about that. Because that's you can save a lot of time and energy um, when you're just honest and building something off integrity. And I realized, again, from the growing process, from being where I am today, there were phases I went through. And even in my modeling stage, again, these are the skeletons. I did things I wasn't happy of just to get to where I was. There were things where that I felt that I had to do with men to get to where I was. There were things I felt like I had to do with women to get to where I was. This where I'm telling you, like, for real, I thought that this was a part of, the process of success, or the process of having a sustainable relationship. I thought that this was the process of happiness. And in reality, I was self-sacrificing myself, hurting other people, wanting them to feel shame and guilt around, well, you pushed me into doing this, or, just guilt tripping, gaslighting people because I knew exactly what I was doing in certain moments. And in that I can truly be honest about it. So that was even relationships where I got into where literally getting out of abusive relationships where I did not know how to navigate my emotions. Where things that as soon as it reminded me of my mom, like I would drink a lot to where, because that was me, a part of me escaping from the reality, um, escaping from my emotions, escaping from the reality. Like it was poor character. It was not integrity or what I was trying to portray to the world and to everyone else. It was not a good judge of character. So with that, there were certain relationships or relationship I remember specifically, like I would literally drink a lot, go out to try to have fun, go out and try to paint this picture like, oh, I'm having a great time, but knew that I was living this, if you want to call it double life, or in love triangles. I was in a lot of things to where I knew that it wasn't sustainable. I knew eventually that I wanted to believe and tell myself that, oh yeah, this is really happiness. This is really the life. And in reality, I was fucking miserable. And what I did, I made other people miserable because I didn't unpack my own emotions. I didn't want to accept the responsibility that I created this life. I created this life, this reality at that moment to where I wanted the same for others, whether I knew it unintentionally or not. And so then when I would see and know things fall apart, naturally from the programming or what I was taught, my responsibility came in to where I realized now it's like I was projecting onto those people. I was trying to make them feel like they were the cause because that's what I saw. I thought that was cool. So after one this relationship, this one specific relationship where I was modeling, again out there seeking so much attention, thinking like this is cool and yeah, this is the life. And I had no type of backbone, had no type of really acknowledging my role. I was running from relationship to relationship. That's what I was doing. Leaving people high and dry, getting what I can. And then eventually I tell people, universal law, what you put out, come back. And you can best believe I've experienced it come back and it hit me until you accept the fact that that's the karma you put out and that's what you'll get back in return. So that one specific relationship, it got really toxic and abusive to where I knew I had to find a way out. And I found a way out through meeting this guy, and that's when I transitioned from my other current relationship into this relationship with another man, to where I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go here, still focus on what I need to do, and knowing that I wasn't gonna be committed. And this person, again, they were looking at the moment from, so they say, because can't just believe everything on the surface. But I knew that was the last time that I needed to be in something physically abusive, because it got to that point before I transitioned to where I knew that this alcohol thing, it was going to get ugly. It was going to get scary. I was repeating patterns of what I saw growing up. I thought it was cool for people to drink and get into that process of like, yeah, drink, fight, or so forth. Police get called, really thinking that this was the life. And in any way I found a window to escape, I would. And through all of that, I thought I was running. I went miles away, thousands of miles away to a whole nother state and thinking I was running from myself. I thought that, again, none of this will follow me. And it did. Just because I was in a relationship with a man, and here it is, this person wanting to pay for everything, say you can stay here. That still came a point to where I knew I wanted to be with women. I knew that deep down within me, that was natural and organic for me. I can't speak for everyone else. I knew that, before I even got there and decided that, where I am now, I knew that I had not faced a lot of things within myself before I even try to put myself in that position to live with somebody and to be even in that environment, knowing that these things, these repressed emotions, knowing that these behavior patterns were following me. And even in that, still living with that person, I still was naturally being drawn to women, still naturally going out there, exchanging energy, having sex, and all that stuff. And then realizing like there was, no care in the world. Like, yeah, you still are going to hurt people. No sense of self-respect, no sense of self-value and self-worth. That's what this was teaching me. And again, in attracting that, who could I blame when I look back? It takes a lot of courage to see your role. I had to start sitting down and seeing my role like, man, how did my life become this? And just being out there for years in that area, I was connecting with people. I was connected with women while living with this man at the moment. Here it is, this person telling me like, they want to marry me. And I'm like, what? I knew I didn't want that. I knew, no. I knew it wasn't even about the money. I was enjoying my life. I was enjoying my life of like the freedom, the liberation, and just being myself, modeling. You couldn't tell me nothing. And then I would meet other women, and a part of me would still gradually gravitate towards them because I knew that through my mother issues at the moment and my motherly wounds that I was naturally gravitated towards them. Then in that relationship dynamic with this much, uh, like this older gentleman, I start to realize as I start facing the things within myself, I start to be like, yo, I start to really see that not only the mother wounds, but the father wounds in a sense of like, I didn't care to be intimate. Yeah, I confided in this person. Here it is, you're telling them all the stuff you went through. You're telling them everything about yourself. And in reality, it's like, you know nothing about this person. You don't even know who they are, let alone you don't even know who you are. I didn't know who I was. I was creating these false narratives and identity of like, this is what it is. It wasn't integrity. It wasn't authenticity. It was nothing. It wasn't love. It was a lot of lust. It was a lot of external and superficial ish. In reality, that's what it was. So I knew that I knew in reality that I didn't want to commit to anything. I knew solely that I wanted my own liberation. I wanted my own freedom. So in that, um, again, I would be gravitated towards women because I still, through my mother wounds, would still try to seek out this wanting to be nurtured, wanting to be loved in a righteous or healthy way. But then again, had not facing my own healing and acknowledged my own ish, my own behavior patterns. These are the still same women that reflected back to me the same things, the similar woundings. Them also reflecting back, them being molested young or something that related to the trauma. It was a lot of trauma bonding. And that's why I realized I was creating. And for a lot of us is that this is what's been happening. I realized I was doing a lot of trauma bonding before even my princess arrived. I was doing a lot of trauma bonding because that's all I knew was trauma relationships. I thought that like this is cool. Okay, this is what life is supposed to be like. And I was fooling myself until I came to the self-realization like you're running and you're running from yourself, you're running from your responsibility, you're running from your emotions, you're running from you no matter what relationship you get in. And through that process, you sit back like I'm sitting now and I'm like, man, not only was I hurting, but look how many people I hurt. Look how many people that right now, probably women, and who knows, from the verbal abuse, from the control, from all those things, I can sit back and be like, man, wow, I was really hurting. And whether unintentionally what I knew it or not, I I hurt people to where I realize now I had to forgive myself for my own actions. Then I also through the years had to go, I met up with women that I experienced certain things with and asked for forgiveness. Or, really met up with them and let them know, like, I'm not happy with the things that I've done. I realized that what I've done, I, came to the awareness, like, how much it did hurt you. Like, really acknowledge my role. And sometimes it wasn't in person. Sometimes it was through via message and so forth. I felt to do what I, knew was best at that moment. Because again, there were women or people who, after the fact, who did, whether they came to the self-awareness or not, because a lot of some relationships, I knew that I had to see my self-worth, and they also had to see their self-worth. Because it takes someone to really not um want to put up when enough is enough. People don't want to keep getting hurt anymore. And that's one thing I had, that was a tough pill to swallow, to accept um my own role and take full accountability for my own actions. I'm not shame and guilt have any guilt around when I look up the things that, what they call a record, my past, to where, again, I had to learn to transmute it. I had to learn to accept it, make peace with it. And it's been a process of making peace with it, to transmute it, to create art, to use my hands to heal. And it still is a process, because now I'm learning to now navigate those emotions from where it really stemmed from the root of what I experienced as a child. A lot of trauma, a lot of anger, repressed anger that comes up around it, and realized, like, I was lashing out where I did not have control or any type of self-awareness around why I felt that person deserved to be pushed, hit, yelled at, screamed at, and so forth. Like, I'm not at all gonna paint it out to, and I refuse to let people paint that picture, because that's how things come full circle. Is that it used to be easy to point out what everybody else did. No, I can hold myself accountable for everything, you know. And so with that, the beauty of it is that I can learn to use it and not let it use me, not let it dictate my path, but seeing how a lot of that brings awareness to my own emotional independence or interdependence or intelligence, to where I can navigate it. I can now use it to bring awareness to a lot of people, to myself, to the young boys who are growing up in environments that are similar, and they don't know a way out. They don't know how to navigate it. And women who don't have the courage to escape it. Women had to escape me or get away from me certain things that, again, when there is no awareness in um really you're taking full responsibility of your own emotions and whatever it is, you can hurt people. And when there's no accountability on the fact that you are responsible for your emotions first, you are responsible for your actions, there are consequences. Yeah. I've been in jail. I've been experiencing stuff like that to really sit myself, sit your ass down. I've been in relationships where, like I said, not all relationships where I was doing the same thing. I realized in certain relationships I was attracting the woundedness. I was attracting the manipulator. I was attracting that because I thought it was normal. And in that, sometimes my response would be fight or flight, or to protect myself. And here I am, the bigger person. So again, um, addressing the skeletons and letting them fall out all over the floor, I realized, like, I'm not at all gonna make it seem like I'm perfect at all. I just know this time around I get to paint my picture. And a part of painting the picture is also the responsibility on how my actions painted a picture that wasn't the prettiest in a way. The prettiest in a way of, like, um, trying to control someone else's and how they paint their canvas and how they paint their life. The control aspect of that, the confusion, the manipulation. And so um those relationships where those relationship dynamics really mirror back to me now a lot of not just a self-awareness, but a self-awareness around my value, how I show up for myself, how I love myself, how I show up for myself emotionally, where I did not receive the love, the nurturing, you know, and how those relationships reflected that. but most importantly, the relationship with myself. How I needed to show up for me more. How I need to see my own shortcomings, my own part in everything that transpired to where we are now. And yeah, I just realized now again, there's no shame or regret on anything I've experienced. I realize how much I hurt myself and how much I hurt others. And, you know, the beauty of it is that I can only evolve and change from it now so that I can face these things head on. Like, I got to face me at the end of the day. I got to be able to make peace and be at peace with a lot of these things. So again, I am the seed that grows. That's my encouraging word for a lot of y'all, is that I am the seed that grows. I'm not at all going to ever paint this picture or this narrative like it may seem that way. It may have seemed or that way, but no, there's people that may not have, think that I have the best interest for their daughter. And I can see why. Or, just anybody based off what they've seen or based off if they do look up some things in my past. They have the right to feel that way. But for me, I'm not at all going to feel guilt or shame around it because I had to come to terms with that. I had to acknowledge that. I had to face it. My current partner, I had to talk to them about it. They also have experienced that part of me to where again, where I wasn't the best showing up emotionally, or I wasn't the best, there's parts to where people can justify and have the right to say like they're scared. And women in the past, certain things on both parts, yeah, I can honestly admit to say like they had their reasons to feel like they were scared and unsafe. And then I can connect that to my own upbringing where I did not feel safe in environments for a while. I did not feel safe in certain relationships for a while. And that solely, I realize now, starts with me valuing my relationship with myself. And so when I do open that closet, I realize like it's showing me my role into where I am, but also still seeing what I could not forget and what I could not avoid, and how those emotions, how those memories subconsciously still come up, or certain things that, again, I have to navigate. And so again, that's the beauty of the journey. We all, at the end of the day, shows like the human experience, or we all are human in a way. Just because someone that's not telling you something, don't ever believe something for face value. The beauty of it now is like, again, if you don't have an authentic or honest relationship with yourself, I'm big on integrity. Very big, because the beauty of it is that you will want the ones that's little to follow after something that you know that you don't got to paint this picture or portray that you have all these things and cover it up. You can really be yourself. My mic's still on. Okay, good. You don't have to cover it up. Put more and more layers. And that's what I realized. I try to create many layers. When I look at certain identities or certain things at stages in my life where I was in this and this, in this relationship, or living here and so forth, I had to realize, was I really being honest with myself? How could I blame this person? Was I really building an honest relationship with myself? Was I being honest with myself? What is my character? And so now that's something I value now, is that before I jump into something, or before I even consider a business ship, a partnership, and so forth, it's like, who is this person? Most importantly, who am I? How am I showing up? Am I showing up? My authentic self? Am I really being myself? So there's going to be some more part twos of this, but I just had to share with y'all. I think some kids just think that, oh my gosh. But anyway, I just had to show up. No distraction. I realized in all of this is like, now showing up for myself, I can really see and be aware of the roles of how, when they say hurt people, and who was enabling me, and also who was I enabling. what was I fueling? What was I pouring into? What was draining me? And really seeing my role and my part in it. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that and enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. There's more skeletons. And again, it's okay to be honest with yourself. Wherever you are in your life, it's okay to show up for you. It's okay to really, whether you got to write it down, whether, that relationship with you starts first. Until you be honest with yourself, you'll go out here and create relationships that, again, are not built off integrity, honesty, and so forth. Because right now is very pivotal moment to where who we associate ourselves with. And that's where I'm at. I'm being very mindful of what I associate myself with. Who's behind this certain music, career, status, and stuff like that. I'm looking past that and looking to the depths and to the surface because I've done that for myself. So I'm very mindful of who I associate myself with. Would I be in a relationship with myself? Would I be in a relationship with myself at this moment? Or do I feel like I'm capable of that? Where are my fears around that? Again, like I said, one of the biggest things for me was the fear of commitment. And what was I committing to? And what I realized is like there was I was committed to the dysfunctionality. I was committed at that moment, young, to the hurt people. Whether I knew it intentionally, because everything, I'm not gonna just say that everything I did not know certain things at the time. So you talk about from a child, it's like I did not know, like, child learning something. It's like learning what they say curse words. I'm just using this as an analogy or example. They learning a curse word and they go out there and say it, like they didn't know they was gonna get in trouble for that. So I can see that process of that. We all have a shadow, we all have skeletons. But who are we to judge and say, because it's easy for people to criticize and come at people, throw the book at people and so forth about, well, you did this, rah, 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 rah. Really, this world is so consumed by that. Want to tell everybody, this is what you did, this is what you did. You know what I'm saying? And make it seem like to cover up what they've done, and then make it seem like this person's stuff outweighs theirs. No, we all have done something. I'm just bringing it to you. Like I said, I'm not looking for no acceptance. I'm not looking for anything. It's just the beauty of that, knowing that I can do this and use my gift for speaking and to help, possibly helping someone get clarity or face themselves and realize like it's beauty in it. It can be painful. It can be, it can be stressful or a process, but it gets easier. That's what I will say. So I'm gonna leave y'all with that, and just know that it's okay to be you for you. It's okay to love yourself. It's okay to really acknowledge your own shortcomings and realize that it's a part of this process. And you being there for you, you showing up for you, will reveal the parts of yourself, the layers of yourself, the versions of yourself that you're not so happy with. Only thing I will express and remember this is like, don't ever beat yourself up. Because people will beat you up. I've experienced that. People will beat you up when they feel like you should feel guilty or shameful. But if you have faced these things and you have gotten through it the best way you know how, keep pressing forward. Keep going. Because I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to do that, because the higher power, source, creator, most high, whatever you want to call it, we all in some way have to face something that's greater than what's on the surface. So I'm going to leave y'all with that. Peace and blessings. Shalom.